Do you have all the things they say should make you happy, but you still feel unfulfilled? Are you always doing what you should do? Or do you never feel like you're enough? And you want to feel better, more fulfilled, more aligned, and more comfortable in your own body? Then this is the show. Scared as fuck and doing it anyway, showing up authentically. My name is Paula Schuster, and I'm a self-love and authenticity coach. My life completely changed when I started loving myself again, putting myself first, and being true to me. This is the show that's going to help you get out of being stuck, out of the cycles of self-abandonment, and help you choose yourself without feeling selfish. It will give you not only inspiration, but awareness, courage, and insights to make changes and live your life for you. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Scared as Fuck and Doing It Anyway, Showing Up Authentically podcast. You're with your host, Paula Schuster. And today I'm going to be doing a solo episode about intuition. Before I get into that, I just want to warn you, we may have some background noise going on. If you're following along, we have our house up for sale and we just got a showing request and I have to record right now. And we also have to get ready for the showing. So my wife is in the background getting the house ready. So we might hear that. Anyway, I'm doing a solo episode today about intuition. I'm super excited and fired up about this. I was asked to do this episode by a dear friend of mine, like almost 4 months ago now. So I feel really bad that I haven't gotten it done until now. She asked me about it really soon after I launched my podcast in January of this year, and it's already freaking May. Can you believe that? Like, I cannot believe it is May. The astrologer I follow, Pam Gregory, has said many times that 2024 is going to be moving at lightning speed. And I hear her when she says it, and I think, oh, I'm going to be fine. I can get through it. But it's still unbelievable to me as I'm experiencing it. So many things are happening so fast. And I don't know if you all are feeling that way, or if I'm feeling that way more so than others because of my age, maybe, I don't know, or if everyone's just really feeling it too. By the way, I'm 52, about to turn 53 on July 30th, in case you're wondering. So time seems to be going a little faster as I get older. Anyway, back to the topic of intuition. So what is intuition? How do we tune into it? How do we know it's our intuition rather than our thoughts or our brains? How does fear come into play? Like, if we're scared about something, could it still be coming from our intuition? I know one of the biggest struggles out there that I've heard anyway is that it's hard to decipher sometimes if my intuition is telling me no or saying no, or if it's fear that's controlling me or making me think that way. And I've heard this from my daughter and many of my friends, and I've experienced it myself. So we'll get into that. We're going to dive into all this and more. And I'm going to share some of my experiences with my intuition and the clear senses in this conversation today. And even though I'm doing a solo episode, I call it a conversation because I feel like I'm talking with you. So what is intuition? Intuition is when you understand something immediately without the need for thinking or conscious reasoning. It's a thing that you just know, and that comes from an instinctive feeling rather than a cerebral or intellectual thinking or analysis. We all have intuition. Every human does. Some of us are just more in tune with it and others not as much. I'll also be bringing in the clear senses to this discussion because I believe the clear senses, while they're a form of psychic ability, I believe they're also part of our intuition. And I also believe that we have the ability to tune into our clear senses. It's just that some of those senses are more strongly developed for some people than for others. But we can practice them to make them stronger. And I believe this to be true because this is what I've experienced in my own life. So stay tuned and we'll get into the clear senses soon enough. First, we're going to be talking more about just straight intuition. So our intuitive senses are how our soul communicates with us, the different ways our intuition speaks to us. Again, we are all naturally intuitive. We just may be cut off from our intuition or not aware of how it's showing up for us or not listening to it or not trusting it. We may have been raised in ways that cause us to switch off from it or doubt it, but regardless, we can still tap into it. And it's just so advantageous to be tapped into it because it's literally a map for our lives. It leads us down our own unique path that's just for us if we just tune in and become aware and listen and trust. And there's my phone going off. Okay, sorry about that. I had forgotten to turn my phone off. Okay, so we may have been, raised in these ways that have caused us to switch off from it. But if we just tune in and become aware and listen and trust, it's amazing. And again, it's our own unique path. So how does your intuition speak to you? It speaks to you in so many ways. There may be a feeling in your stomach. Your heart might be racing. There might be a heaviness or tension in your shoulders or other parts of your body. It could be a soft whisper or a nudging thought or feeling. These are all ways our intuition speaks to us. Our intuition definitely lives in our bodies. It speaks to us through our bodies a lot of the time. Not always, but a lot. So pay attention to how your body feels. It's giving you messages. And it's helpful to find the feeling words and apply them to your body. The most common is probably that gut feeling. We've all had the gut feeling, haven't we? So that's the most common. And then there's also those moments of just knowing. They're pretty common too. You don't know how you know, but you just know. And when that happens, it's so important to listen to our knowing and just go with it. Even if it doesn't make sense to us at the time, just do it. Trust it. Other ways our intuition speaks to us are whispers, downloads during meditation or driving or otherwise, like when you're in any kind of other meditative type state. It might be something someone says in a certain way that just hits you differently or resonates differently than it ever has before. It could even be something someone does that hits you differently. The important thing is that we're aware of it and listening and taking note. It could be an email message in your inbox. And I have a story that's relatable to that I'll share later. But an email in your inbox could be like a sign that something is coming to you versus you going out and getting it or taking action to do or get that something. It could be meeting someone new who leads you toward or away from something. It could be a song lyric that all of a sudden stands out in a new way or hits you differently or calls or pulls you into something else. Or it could be a line in a TV show or a movie that you notice or that just speaks to you. I've had sparks in my heart too. Like literally, I have felt a physical spark in my heart about something, a heart's desire, if you will. And for me, I've had heart's desires that are more of an emotional feeling and ones that are literal physical feelings in my heart. And it could be what lights you up or what makes you curious. Like we all need to be listening to these things. A closed door or obstacle could be our intuition speaking to us. And it often means that something better is coming for us. Like a blessing in disguise, as they say. It's the universe watching out for us, saving us from something, or maybe the universe has something better in store for us. Sometimes my intuition presents itself to me through things that I'm resistant to. What I'm learning is that when I'm super resistant to something or someone, that's exactly what I need. And I need to lean in instead of running away from it or keeping away from it. And I mentioned that nudging thought or feeling. There are so many ways our intuition is speaking to us and leading us down the right path for us. Again, conscious awareness of all the signs and messages is the key. And then, of course, listening rather than dismissing or resisting. Just know that no matter what, you're always on the right path and you can never get it wrong. We can always fall back into that. Like even if it turns out that something is a dud where your intuition led you to it and it's a dud, it gives you information to go on that you didn't have before. Then you know what direction you're supposed to take from there. Remember that contrast in whatever form is valuable information, because when we have something that we don't know, it helps us, or don't like, it helps us know what we do like or what we do want, where we should go, when the right time is. So contrast is also very valuable information. So how do you tune into your intuition? Mostly it's being acutely aware of how you're feeling in any given moment or upon presentation of any given thing. It's about listening to your body, the sparks, the immediate knowings, the nudges. In the moment, it's just like awareness and recognition. It's learning to pay attention in the present moment to what's happening, to what your body is telling you, and to recognize the signs that are happening all around you all of the time. Our bodies have this innate magical intuition and intelligence that's always at work for us. And tuning into your intuition is also living from your heart space, being guided and directed from your heart space instead of your head and your thoughts. If you want to be more intentional about tuning in and like asking a specific question and looking for a specific answer, I would say it's about going inward. It's about getting quiet and still and emptying the mind and going inward, going into the body for answers. Another of the questions that I received about this topic is, how do you know if your intuition is saying no or if fear is controlling you? And I know this is a pretty common thing to, struggle with, I guess, or it's challenging to know, if it's your intuition saying no or if it's really fear. The first thing I would say is that it's important to know that just because your intuition is leading you somewhere doesn't mean you won't be scared or fearful or uncomfortable. You might be scared or fearful or uncomfortable because it's growth for you, or a stretch or a new edge, but that doesn't mean it's not for you. Sometimes we have to dance with our fears and get uncomfortable. And when we do, I guarantee there will be magic and empowerment and expansion on the other side. So that said, my best advice to knowing if your intuition is saying no or if it's fear that's controlling you, it's to ask yourself what your first thought or feeling about it was. Your intuition is usually that first thought or feeling, and the fears having control over you are the thoughts and the things that come afterwards. The ego thoughts that try to keep you safe and small, of, the ones that are, who are you to do that? And there are people already doing it. You won't be successful. Those are your ego thoughts that shrink you, and that's the fear controlling you versus your intuition. Because your intuition is never going to be speaking to you in that kind of a way or trying to keep you small. I would say it's also important to go inward, get quiet and still, empty your mind, and look to your body for answers. I know that I'm repeating what I just said a couple of minutes ago, but this is really the way to tell. And, about fear too, it's going into your body, ask your body, like literally ask it the questions you need answers to, either out loud or quietly to yourself. It will tell you and guide you down the right path. It just might take a few minutes. You have to be willing to spend a few minutes, or maybe it's not even immediate. Maybe you have to sit down and get quiet and empty your mind and do this, for several days in a row, and then the answers start to seep in and come. But it will always tell you and guide you down the right path. Like, you have all the answers you need deep inside you. You know the answers that are right for you. No one else has the answers for you but you. If your fear is controlling you, it'll be more of a head thing, a mind thing, an analysis thing, an ego thing. And if it's an intuition thing, you might be scared, but it's an edgy scared. It's an excited scared. It's a good scared, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. Hopefully that helps and it makes sense. And if not, you're always welcome to reach out and let's connect and talk about it. Like, you can reach me at paula@reikiflowmn.com. My best advice is just to don't overthink your intuition. Listen to it, go with it, follow it, and lean into it. And remember these helpful tips. Number one, move out of your head and into your heart. There are many answers in your head and only one answer in your heart. Number two, our emotions are messengers. They're there to give us information about how we are in or out of alignment with our true selves and our true nature. Number three, ask your guides for help. All of us have spirit and angel guides, a whole team of them that are always there to help us. Call on them. Ask them for help. It makes a difference. Number four, you have to go first, and then the universe will respond. Take a small step or inspired action toward what you're thinking is the right direction, and soon you'll find out if it's right because the universe will support you. Number five, pay attention to seemingly random thoughts because they aren't so random most of the time. And six, no matter what, you're always on the right path and you can never get it wrong. Remember that. Seven, the more you follow your intuition, the stronger it will become. And I can vouch for that too. Mine's getting stronger and stronger. So when I think about my intuition, I think back to when I was a kid. I always thought I didn't really have much intuition because my mom and my sister had loads of it. And when compared to theirs, mine felt so small and insignificant and like not really there. And I don't remember my mom telling me that, yes, I had it too, and having a talk with me about it, and telling me I just needed to tune into it. I don't remember her teaching me about it, but I also didn't ask because I didn't really know it was a thing. I can look back now and talk about my experience, but at the time, I just wasn't aware. And this is where the clair senses come in for me. So if we look at it from the perspective of the clair senses, and just in case you aren't familiar with them, the clair senses are like types of psychic abilities or intuition. And some of them correspond with the five senses of seeing, hearing, feeling, smelling, and tasting. But there are others too. So let's just do a quick run through. So clairvoyance is clear seeing. Clairaudience is clear hearing. Claircognizance is clear knowing. Clairintellect is clear thinking. Clairempathy is clear emotion. Clairsentience is clear physical feeling. Clairtangency is clear touching. Clairsalience is clear smelling. And clairgustance is clear tasting. So if we look at the clair senses, both my mom and my sister had and still have really strongly developed clairvoyance or clear seeing, claircognizance or clear knowing, and clairsentience or clear feeling. My mom would literally have what she called visions. I'm kind of using air quotes. My mom would have visions all the time. And she called them visions instead of intuition because she was and is deeply religious, and so relates to them, coming from God and spirit versus her own intuition. And the lines get blurred there for me. I believe it all comes into play. I don't believe it has anything to do with religion, but call it spirit. I think it's also part of our body's own intelligence and intuition. But my mom's visions were the strongest clairsense that she had. So they were clear, they were frequent, they were spot on. Like when we knew my mom had a vision, we knew we needed to pay attention to whatever it was because it was going to happen. So a few things that come to mind as examples are that, like, she knew when my sister and I were going to have babies before we were even pregnant. She knew the sexes of our babies before we were pregnant. She knew when car accidents were going to happen. And, depending on the person, if she couldn't get a hold of them or tell them about it, she would just pray a ton to keep them safe. And she even, and just so much more, like she had so many visions, but she even knew my best friend was pregnant because she saw her on a hill holding a baby. And lo and behold, my best friend was pregnant, but hadn't told anyone yet. So, You know, her visions were spot on. She also knew when things were going to be okay. So claircognizance, that knowing. Like one time there was a tornado happening very close to our house, and she refused to go down in the basement with the rest of us because she absolutely knew that she was going to be okay. The rest of us were scared as fuck. And we were begging her to come downstairs and she wouldn't. Well, a tree from the forest area behind our yard came down and came right through our kitchen window. And like literally the top of the tree was in our kitchen sink. And she was in just the next room over from the kitchen in our family room. And she was just fine. And she knew she was going to be. So my sister was really in tune with her intuition too, and like very sensitive and very in tune to just like the unseen world and spirits and things. She had visions and dreams like my mom, and she had a strong knowing about things, like especially when we were teenagers and we were doing things that we weren't supposed to be doing, like drinking underage and things like that, or, you know, places where we weren't supposed to be. She would just know, just all of a sudden know that it was time to stop and get the heck out of Dodge because the cops were coming or whatever, you know, stuff like that. She also had really strong gut feelings about people, about things and people. So she just knew when someone wasn't to be trusted. Like when she met them, she would know that they were bad news and not to hang out with them. And, you know, she would just walk away. Me, you know, I just went ahead. If I did sense anything, I wasn't listening to it. I was too driven by what I wanted or what I thought I wanted and to let anything stop me. And I just like wasn't as in tune. And so when I say my sister was sensitive, I mean, she could see and sense ghosts and spirits and dead people. And that made her scared more than anything. She told my mom and me both about her experiences, but my mom really didn't know how to handle it or what to say to her about it, like, you know, to encourage her to develop those gifts or not, and to not be scared and things. So they just shared stories. And all I remember is wishing that I could see and sense them too. I was jealous of her because I thought it was cool. And, you know, she hated it and wanted it to stop. And she didn't think of it as the gift that, you know, that I saw that it was. And I don't know if she still sees and senses those things. I think she does, but I don't know. Well, number one, because I don't talk, we're not very close anymore, and so we're barely talking at this point, which is kind of sad. But also because she, you know, drinks and numbs herself quite a bit, and so, you know, when you're doing those things, sometimes you lose that sensitivity when you're numbing so much. And so, and I'm not pointing any fingers or anything. My sister has been through a shit ton of abuse and trauma throughout her life, and you know, started numbing herself many years ago to deal with all that trauma. And so it's just unfortunate. And I really care about her so badly, and I want a better life for her, but that's her work and her responsibility, and she needs to heal on her own timeline. It was kind of a sidebar, but anyway, like I said, I didn't think I had these gifts or intuition because of that, I discounted my gut feelings and other messages that were coming from my body, and I thought the whispers that I heard now and then were just me and my thoughts and weren't to be trusted in the same way as like psychic abilities or intuition. I just didn't know. Now, of course, I know that I do have intuition. Everyone does. And it's just a matter of being tuned into it and being aware, recognizing it and listening to it. And I know that I have strongly developed clairsentience, or the clear physical feeling. And I think I also have clear empathy or clear emotion, and clairaudience or clear hearing, because I do hear whispers. But I think clairaudience is my clear sense that isn't quite as developed as strongly as my others. So because I didn't think I had them, I was really completely cut off from and unaware of my intuition and my clear senses for most of my life, really. And part of this was, due to the fact that I was so caught up in my conditioning and the way I thought life was supposed to be. I was caught up in the 3D physical world and what I thought reality was, which was the physical stuff in front of me. I didn't know about energy. I wasn't taught about it. I didn't believe in the unseen and thought it was all woo-woo stuff because that's what I was basically taught, and I didn't know. And so now I know, how much I was really actually missing out on. But how did I come back and get connected back with my intuition? Well, it started, I got tuned back in when I had a profound spiritual awakening experience. And that happened when I was trained and attuned to Reiki back in 2020. It was the most powerful experience and had such a profound impact on me. It was the most powerful experience in my whole life thus far. I mean, I remember being attuned to Reiki level 1, and I literally felt myself coming home to myself. It was like my soul came back home to my body. There was so much healing that happened for me that week, and so much shedding of trauma and conditioning and layers, and so much awareness that showed me how I was living my life for other people rather than myself. It was such a big bang experience. And I've told this story tons of times on other people's podcasts. And I think I may have told part of it on one of my first episodes about my journey. I can't remember now. So maybe I'll do an episode about it sometime here on my podcast. But after that week in October 2020, when I was trained and attuned to all 3 levels of Reiki, I was like a completely different person. I came home and my family didn't recognize me. I didn't look the same. I didn't talk the same. I didn't eat the same things. I didn't dress the same. I didn't care about the same things. Like nothing about me was the same. My wife was scared that I would leave her because I had changed so much. And like 2 days in to me being home, my daughter got right up in my face and said, "Who are you?" And I said, "I don't know. We're finding out." And it's just been a beautiful unfolding ever since. But that's when I became attuned to myself again, when I became aware again, when I started listening to myself, and, when I was connected to my intuition and my clairsenses again, really. And I've been working on developing it all. And now when I'm giving Reiki, like I know where the person needs it because of what I can feel in my body, clairsentience. I know when I've channeled enough Reiki in a particular spot based on how I'm feeling in my body. And I pay attention to my thoughts and where my pains are in my body, and I hear messages during Reiki sessions, and sometimes anyway, and I hear messages more so in my daily meditations. A lot of the time I get downloads and things. But like I said, I've been working on developing it. So, it hasn't always been this way. So I guess my message there is you can develop yours too. So when I was first attuned to Reiki and started practicing, I was just getting in tune with my intuition. And it was like, I don't know how to say it properly, but it was harder to decipher than it is now. Like I didn't know enough to pay attention to what was going on in my body. And then like one day it was just like, oh, that's what's happening, right? And now that I've had some time to practice, it comes much easier and I'm just more in tune and it's just stronger. So this gets to the point that I made earlier, that we all have these abilities. We just need to practice them and develop them more fully, which I'll expand on in a few minutes. But just to add to what I was saying, like I listen to the whispers that I hear from spirit because I know it's my intuition leading me in the right direction. So I follow the breadcrumbs. And I have to say, life is getting so much easier for me. And as I tune in more and more and follow the breadcrumbs more and more, like I don't need to know what the right next step is. I just tune in and listen, and there it is. I have to share a quick story that's kind of cute. So a couple of months ago, I had a dream that I won the lottery, right? It was $500,000 to be exact, and it was so clear that it was a winning lottery ticket. The confusing thing was that Kara and my wife and I were with my ex-husband, and it was like, well, and it was like we all won it together or something, which I don't know why he was in the picture, but whatever. Then a couple of weeks later, I had another dream that it was a scratch-off lottery ticket that I won with. Like I saw myself scratching off the winning numbers or whatever. So here and there, I've been buying scratch-off tickets where you can win $500,000. But oh my God, like it wasn't until literally just this minute that it just dawned on me that maybe I need to buy a ticket with my ex-husband, and then maybe it will happen. Maybe that's the key to winning, since he was in my dream. Oh my God. Anyway, keeping my fingers crossed. All right. So how can you develop your clairsenses and your intuition? Some of the things I've already been saying, like get tuned in. Start by being acutely aware of everything around you, things coming to you, things people are saying to you, the way you feel when, you hear a certain line in a movie, or when someone says something that resonates. Pay attention to your body and how it feels when you're around people, when you're meeting people, when you're walking into a room full of people, when making decisions that you're unsure about. And then listen, recognize, follow, and trust. And then evaluate afterwards. As far as the clairsenses go, like you can develop any of your clairsenses just by practicing them. So if you want to develop your clairvoyance sense, I would say start with reading oracle cards. Pick one card each day. And just by the way, I learned this from a good friend of mine whom I love and cherish. But pick one card each day, keep it flipped over so you can't see what's on it. Put your hand on it and try to see what's on it without looking. Kind of, with your intentions, set yourself aside, set your ego aside, and ask your guides to help you see. What colors do you see? What symbols do you see? Are there words? Are there objects? And just note or, mentally note or write down the first things that come to mind, and then practice with one card every day. And just remember that you might come up with things that are related to what's on the card at first, rather than what's exactly on the card. That still counts because you're developing your skill, you're learning. And if you want to develop your clairaudience, for example, sit in silence with your eyes closed and listen for all the sounds you can hear. What's the loudest sound that you can hear? What's the quietest sound you can hear? What sound is closest to you and which is furthest away? What's inside your house and what's outside if you're in. And then keep trying to hear the farthest, quietest sound that's outside, and practice that daily. So those are just a couple of examples that, really can be applied to any of the clairsenses if you want to try developing yours. So happy clair skill developing. Okay, next I want to share a couple of good stories about how I've listened to my intuition that highlight the various ways that our intuition talks to us and highlights how we just need to kind of pay attention. So one story starts off with a really good friend of mine was hosting her first retreat. So naturally I was signed up to go. This was a few years back. I got COVID like 7 or 8 days before we were supposed to leave the country. The retreat was in Mexico. And again, this is at a time when COVID was like a big deal, and you had to certify that you didn't have it for the 14 days before you're traveling and all that business. And so I had gotten it, and I was on the mend. I was feeling better. I was at about 80% on the day before our flight, and definitely feeling better. As far as like at the time, as far as like what the CDC was saying, I was good to go. I was in their safe zone because at the time I think it was like 5 days or something like that. So I was okay there, and I wanted to go to this retreat so bad, but I just wasn't sure about it. Like there was just something in me that was just like, questioning it. I was talking to my friend who, the gal who was hosting the retreat the night before the flight, and I hadn't even packed my suitcase because I was uncertain. And in that conversation, she talked me into going, and right away I had a bad stomach ache and like nervousness in my stomach. It was hard to tell what it was from though, because I had stomach aches from COVID and diarrhea the couple of days before. And I felt nervous about having to rush around and pack, worrying that I might forget something for the trip. So I thought it could have just been nervousness. But I had this nudging feeling, that my intuition was trying to tell me something, but I couldn't decipher what it was. So I decided to quickly pack my things, and that way, any nervousness over that would be gone, and then I could sit down on the couch and get clear. So that's what I did. And I sat down and I went inward and I asked my body what it was trying to tell me. I asked myself, should I go on this retreat? I wanted the answer so badly to be yes, especially if after I had just packed everything. And I really quickly got my answer. My stomach started rumbling and getting worse, and I was literally almost doubled over in pain. I had my answer, and it was a big fuck no. So I called it off and I didn't go, and I felt okay about that. Like I wasn't feeling bad or anything. I felt like it was the right decision. And then the next day I started having FOMO, and I was having a little pity party about missing out on my friend's awesome retreat. So I decided to pull an oracle card, and the message that I got was that I was exactly where I needed to be, and that I was going to meet someone that week who was important to my journey, which was really weird because I was just going to be sitting at home. So then later that day, I was sitting on the couch scrolling on Instagram, and I came across this video of a woman talking about the organic mushroom farm that she started after experiencing the healing properties of mushrooms herself. And she was telling the story of how Western medical doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with her when she was ill, and it was getting worse. And so she researched it herself and found out that mushrooms had what she needed. So she started to grow them herself, and basically they saved her life. And I was just like, and so she built a farm. And I was like blown away by this video and by this story. Like I felt a literal spark in my heart as I was watching the video, and I was just hooked. I was fucking all in. So I moved over to my computer and checked out her website, and there was no way to contact her except to enter my name and email address and a message in the contact form on the website. And it's important to note that at the time I was looking for a way out of corporate America, and I was hoping for something having to do with healing and that had more purpose. And as far as I was concerned, this was it. Like I found it. So I sent her a message on the contact form on the website and introducing myself, giving her an idea of the skills that I had and that I could help her build her company. And I left her phone number and asked her to call me. And as soon as I hit the send button on that contact form, I heard this whisper in my ear that said, be persistent. And a memory flashed through my head about the time I was getting a job at Norwest Bank way back in the day. I was really persistent about trying to get that job and had contacted the hiring manager so many times that she ended up telling me, don't call me, I'll call you. And when the time came for her to hire, she called and hired me because the job needed somebody persistent. So that memory flashed, and I decided right then that if I hadn't heard from this woman at the organic mushroom farm in a week or two, that I would reach out again. And so I did. And the second time I filled out the contact form on our website, I said, remember me? I reached out a couple weeks ago. Here are some additional things that I forgot to tell you that I want you to know about me and my skills, and told her that I would love to hear from her. And you're never gonna fucking believe it, but she called. She called me a few days later on the day that just happened to be the Leo full moon. And I'm a Leo, by the way. And when she called, I didn't have the ringer on my cell phone on because I was on the clock for Wells Fargo. So I always had my ringer off when I was on the clock for them. And I just happened to see the phone light up out of the corner of my eye. I was in between meetings, and noticed that it was a Colorado number. So I picked it up and it was her. And I was so fucking shocked. Like my whole body lit up like a fucking hell yes. And as I was talking with her, and we talked for like 30 minutes. By the end of that conversation, she had invited me and my wife out to the mushroom farm in Colorado. And her and I were literally saying that we loved each other at the end of that conversation before we hung up. It was so serendipitous. I mean, my whole body was like shaking with full on excitement for hours afterwards. My wife had never seen me like that before. And I had never experienced that before either. It was like pure freaking magic. Needless to say, I quit Wells Fargo and I went to work for the organic mushroom farm. And it didn't work out in the long run, but it was the thing that wined and dined me out of my corporate job, which needed to happen right then when it did. And I love this story because it demonstrates the many ways that my intuition spoke to me and that the universe was supporting me. And I listened. So it was my stomach ache, the oracle card, the spark in my heart, the whisper in my ear, the call on the Leo full moon, the full on body reaction, the dud that it turned out to be, yet it served its purpose in pulling me out of corporate America and putting me on the path to entrepreneurship and building my own business in the healing and coaching and wellness space, which is where my purpose is. So it was leading me down the right path. It was just a little windy. I followed my heart's desire and ultimately it turned out. The mushroom farm wasn't the path for me, but it led me to the right path. And this is why I say, like, you're always on the right path and you can never get it wrong. So that's one of my stories. And I have another story about becoming a podcaster because I never freaking thought I would be a podcaster, not in a million freaking years. Like if you would have told me just a year ago that I would be a podcaster, I would have dismissed you and said, no way. I've always been nervous to speak in front of people and didn't want to use my voice in that way, blah, blah, blah. But I followed the breadcrumbs that the universe put in front of me and I listened to my intuition and here I am. So the story goes, I signed up for a 12-week intensive coaching program in February of 2023. And I devoted myself to doing all the homework, doing all the things in the class because I knew that I was going to get out what I put in. It just so happens that the coach who was teaching that class happens to be a famous podcaster. So there was 1 week of the homework that was devoted to podcasting. And it was like I skipped the week. It was the only week I skipped. I didn't do any of the homework. I didn't even watch the video, nothing. Because again, I never thought I'd be a podcaster. And like during this program, I received an email from an executive producer of a radio network who had seen my website and my story and wanted me to consider doing a radio show. And I looked at that email and I filed that fucker away thinking, that's not for me. I'm not doing that. So then a couple days later, I'm thinking, okay, here I am in this program, working on changing myself, changing my beliefs, and trying to say yes to more things. And I filed that, like my intuition, like I just got this download that I needed to go back and look at that email. So I went back and pulled it out, recognizing that it was something the universe had put in front of me that maybe I needed to say yes to. And I met with this woman. She wanted me to start creating a show or episodes or whatever over the summer for a fall release of the show. And I told her, well, that's not going to work because I was spending 2 months in Costa Rica last summer watching a friend's house and dogs. And, that just wouldn't happen. And she told me to buy a microphone and to bring it with me to Costa Rica. Cause she's like, you're probably going to meet some interesting people there and you could record the conversations and we can edit them when you get back. And so I let that sit for a couple of days and I'm like, yep, I'm going to buy a fucking microphone. So I did. There was just like an urge, just like a nudging, like I talked about. So I bought a microphone, I brought it with me to Costa Rica, and I recorded a couple of conversations while I was there, not knowing what would come of it, a podcast, a radio show, or maybe nothing. So I get home from Costa Rica, and I had recorded a couple of conversations. And I see my coach is hosting a free podcasting boot camp. So, and I had thought about things while I was in Costa Rica, and I thought, well, maybe I could do a podcast. We'll see. So I see this free podcasting boot camp. I sign up, thinking, I'll get what I can out of the free class, because I wasn't going to be able to invest in the program that I knew was going to follow, because I had kind of spent my limit on self-investment for the year between the other coaching program and, the time in Costa Rica. And I was still trying to go to a sound healing training in December. So the finances were at the limit. And so during the free boot camp, I learned about scholarships. And so I applied, and I remember thinking, if I receive this scholarship, it's another breadcrumb from the universe telling me this is my path. And I can't deny it if I receive a scholarship. And guess what? I received a partial scholarship for the program. And I mean, my mind was fucking blown, like I couldn't believe it. So I took the course, and for, 5 out of the 8 weeks, I sat in my fear, for a good part of the program. And after doing that, I, finally got my ass in gear, and I launched my podcast, messy, but I launched it on January 11th, 2024. And, honestly, it's the fucking most amazing and expansive that I ever remember feeling in my life. Like, I literally, especially after it just launched, felt brand new and just so incredibly inspired. And it was and is truly fucking amazing. So there you go. There's another example of paying attention, recognizing the signs, and not resisting them, but following them, even when it feels like it's wrong in the beginning. And I really do love podcasting. And I plan to keep going and growing it and making an impact out in the world with my voice and with my story. And, my intention with it is just to help and serve, to be relatable, to hold space for others, for people, and just to help in some small way. Like, if I can help one person with each of my episodes, then it's worth it to me. And that's what I've got for you today. That's it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was super cool doing it and hanging out with you today. And I look forward to next week on the Scared as Fuck and Doing It Anyway podcast. That was how the name of the podcast was born, by the way. Was, I had mentioned I sat in my fear. Well, I knew I wanted my podcast to be about authenticity. I had a different name picked out, and it wasn't feeling right. And I was scared, and I was crying at my desk one day, and my wife comes over and she says, what's wrong? And I said, I'm so fucking scared. And then I was like, that's it. Scared as fucking doing it anyway. So anyway, thank you so much for being here. I know you have so many things to do, and I just really appreciate that you take time out of your life to be here. I hope my podcast gives you new perspective. I hope it sparks inspiration. I hope it adds positivity to your day. And I hope this particular episode helps you understand your intuition better, how to tune into it, how to recognize it, and helps you listen to it, even when you're a little unsure. There are amazing episodes on the way, so please make sure that you follow along wherever you're listening, Apple or Spotify or wherever. And if this episode resonates with you, share it with somebody. Take a second to email the link to this episode to someone who could really use it or who would enjoy it. And if you're feeling so generous and inclined, I would love a review. I would love it if you could leave a review or a rating, because that helps other people find the podcast and it helps me going. It's all about the algorithms these days, And I would love to hear from you. I would love to connect with you. It's one of the reasons why I started this podcast, is because I want to connect with more people. So reach out and tell me, did you like this episode? Did you not? Or let's not even talk about the episode if you don't want to. Let's just connect and meet and talk. You can always reach me at Paula@ReikiFlowMN.com. All right, I have a quick advertisement for Mudwater. Mudwater is where it's at. Have you tried it yet? It's the coffee replacement drink that I have every morning, and I love it with a little honey and oat milk. Two of the things I love best about it is that it's organic and it's made with mushrooms, so it has tons of health benefits. The best part is you can get a 15% discount using my link, which is mudwater.com/Paula Schuster. That's mudwtr.com/PAULASCHUSTER. I'll put a link in the show notes too. And finally, I just want to let you know that I have only one spot left open on my coaching calendar because another beautiful, brave soul reached out and grabbed the other one, which just makes my day. I'm seriously so lit up to be working with people who are looking for help, working with people who are going through some of the same things that I've been through and still go through sometimes, and with working with people who are ready to make changes in their life. Ready is my word for 2024. Ha! Are you ready? Do you want this final open spot? It's here waiting for you. I specialize in helping my clients clear patterns of unworthiness and self-loathing. I help them rewire limiting beliefs and learn how to put themselves first. I will help you cultivate self-love and believe in yourself and uncover your life purpose and embrace your authentic self while reconnecting with your intuition. We'll work with your energy, your mindset, and your body to make the shifts that you're looking for and make sure that they stick. So what's been pulling at you? What's been calling you? What's in your heart that wants to be freed? It's time to let it all out and step into your authentic self and purpose. Let's do it together. It's so exciting. I know that you're ready for more. I know you can do this. I see you, I know you, and I'm with you, and I have a space on my calendar waiting for you. Go to my website, check out my coaching packages, look at my About Me page to learn more about me, and book a free discovery call to find out if we're a good match for working together. Some of the best investments I've made in my entire life have been on coaching. You can find everything at reikiflowmn.com. Let's connect and have an honest and vulnerable heart-to-heart conversation about what you want and how you can make an impact in the world. And let's get you going in the direction you want to go in. I cannot wait to meet you. Okay, beauties, thanks for listening. I love you all so much. Peace out.